Oh, welcome to Podadelphia. My name is Dave DiOrio. You can find me on Twitter at fat_lobster, and I'm joined by a guy who cannot grow a full beard. What's up, Gene?
No, that's true. There's these two slots, like right here, that will not connect. So you can get like sideburns, goatee, Fu Manchu, nothing.
Yeah, you got to power through.
Yeah. So my name's Gene Zelak. You can find me on Twitter at Producer Gene, and you can find the show at Podadelphia.
It's just you and me tonight. No Sarah, no Nico.
I know.
Just us two.
We're gonna have to deal with just you and me
hanging out. And it's funny. It's like, oh my God, there was the Super Bowl was on Sunday, and it's absolutely buried in the list of things to talk about.
And it's not like it was a dud of a game. Like it went down to the final.
That was a great game.
Possession. It was one of the more entertaining Super Bowls that I've watched in a really long time. Probably the most entertaining one since 2017, which is the most entertaining Super Bowl in the history of Super Bowl.
Will never be defeated
until the next time the Eagles beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. So yes, no.
I don't even know if that one will be as good as the original win. Before we get into some other stuff, did you like after the Super Bowl get to go through your social media feed and find all your boomer relatives who are like, worst halftime show ever?
I didn't have to go very far. I mean, as soon as you open the thing,
total garbage.
Well, and the bar I was at was sort of populated. I mean, it was one of the first Super Bowls I've actually like went out for the Super Bowl. Usually I'm watch the Super Bowl at home, but I had no desire to go and gather takeout and all of the stuff that you do for Super Bowl. It's just me and my one buddy that really were interested. We had invited other people. Nobody seemed to care. So we were like, fuck it. We're just going to go. We're going to camp out at a bar. We had our own TV to ourselves. They had done $12,000 in wings like by 4:00 in the afternoon at this bar that I was at. So as soon as we would like think the word wings would appear at our table. So you really couldn't beat it. So we just sat, camped out, did the whole thing. But the other people that were there were people that were honestly there, I think, just having like their Sunday night dinner. And we're like, why are all the TVs on the same thing?
The early bird special.
Bro, it's the Super Bowl. Nobody's watching anything else.
It was a fun Super Bowl.
There, and then when the halftime show came on, there was this one couple that was like, can you turn this off? I don't want to listen.
Where do you hang out, Gene? Honestly, like what? How do you even find yourself in a place that has people that don't want to watch the Super Bowl?
I don't know.
That's fine.
But I wanted to watch the Super Bowl, and
I do feel my heart.
I really like the halftime show personally. I don't know about you, but I really liked it.
Yeah, it was great. My heart really went out after the Super Bowl to all the people of Cincinnati and St. Louis.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was one of the conversations that me and my buddy had. We're like, if you were in St. Louis right now today, Sunday,
now you're mad.
Who were you rooting for? Like, who could you possibly be rooting for? Right, you had to be rooting for the Bengals.
Well, it was funny. I was at the Sixers game on Saturday, and they do this thing where Franklin, who is the worst mascot of all time, comes out with two easels. And they put like two things on the easels, and he like points out, and you have to cheer like, "Oh, I like this one better." And so they did the Super Bowl. They had the Rams and the Bengals, and the crowd went absolutely like it was like 90-10 Bengals support. I feel like I've changed camps on this before. When we did not have a Super Bowl, I never wanted any team that hadn't won a Super Bowl to win one. I was like, Saints, no, don't win the Super Bowl. Seahawks, no, don't win the Super Bowl. And now I'm on the other end.
More members
like every city deserves to have a Super Bowl celebration. So I was rooting for the Bengals. It was not to be, but Cover City, baby. Woo!
I bet the Bengals, but I also parlayed the over, so I did not hit that. But I had taken a couple of MVP bets, and I did hit on Cooper Kupp.
Oh, nice. Good for you. Good for you.
So, yeah. I
should have listened to Mark and Philly and taken Matthew Stafford with the 278 over passing yards.
Yeah,
that one was my big bet. I poured most of my money into that one.
Yeah, that was a good bet. I really was hoping it was sort of looking. My buddy had the Bengals kicker as the MVP, and it was looking like there was a possibility that like if they could have gotten in range and kicked a field goal to go to overtime, and then he kicks a game winner,
He still
maybe
wouldn't have
that
won
pays
it.
off.
He still wouldn't have won it. I thought Aaron Donald at plus 2,000 was an interesting MVP bet. Anyway,
Well, and
we're talking
honestly,
about like prop bets after the Super Bowl. It's really probably not helpful.
yeah,
Anyway,
but I mean, like,
the big news of the week, obviously, the trade. Ben Simmons gone. Ben real, bro. See you later.
it's so
And
funny
James
to
Harden,
listen.
the beard, is in town.
It's
Ringing
so
the
funny to
bell
listen
tonight.
to the reaction of all of these people now, a couple of days later, because that was last Thursday. To listen, the nice thing about us doing our format now is we have time to sort of listen to the other cuckoos go bananas before we have to react to anything. So
Before we go bananas.
Right. So,
yeah.
Everybody that's talking about it, they're so bent out of shape about like the trade now losing Curry, and it's like, everybody was so done with Simmons because everybody has just sort of written him off as ever playing for the Sixers again. It's almost like the trade was not Ben Simmons, and it was like, oh, we had to give up Curry and Drummond for Harden. Yeah. Like, it's just insane how irrelevant like Ben Simmons as a person has sort of become to like our consciousness as a fan base.
Yeah, you almost forget that like he was a part of the deal because he was just a non-entity for the team for so long, and they're playing so well without him. It was almost like, well, he's the throw-in to not the crown jewel of the trade. But
yeah, a guy who is like a perennial defensive player of the year candidate.
I mean, the trade itself, I'm not going to get into who won and who lost the trade. I mean, there's people that know more about it than me have weighed in. I think it's good for both teams, I guess. Like I honestly, I feel like the Sixers made out on the trade because I don't like, no matter what you think about Ben Simmons, like as far as like if you think this is like a great fit for Ben Simmons, like the ideal landing spot for him, if you're taking the Stephen A. Smith approach, like, oh, this is the most dangerous place for him to land. To me, he's still Ben Simmons. Like, there's nothing that, like, and we'll get into the sort of the mental health
argument,
claim, problem. When did it start? When did it stop? Is it still going on? But no matter what, to me, it's fragile. Like, Ben Simmons is fragile, not physically, but I feel like psychologically, it's a fragile situation. And yes, right now, everything seems great, right? It's like, oh, I got out of my toxic Philadelphia situation, which we'll also talk about. And I'm now into this ideal situation for me. I could, finally I could breathe fresh air. I'm in Brooklyn, and it's all great. But there is going to be adversity at some point. Yeah. And when that happens, what does how does Ben Simmons handle that? And we've seen it. He doesn't handle it well. I mean, like, for some reason, we've had this track record of this type of person in Philadelphia that's just like, I'm not into adversity. And when I get it, I shy away from it. And it's going to happen in Brooklyn.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, it's amazing to me how much of a bust that big three was. Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant. They played 16 games together. The fact that, and the only reason that they didn't play more games together outside of, to a certain degree, I guess, injury. But, I mean, there were long stretches of this season where they were all healthy and couldn't get on they played 16 games together, and that was, I think, 2 playoff series, which is the bulk of the time they played together. So how were they ever going to be a juggernaut? It was just not going to happen. Somehow those personalities never really worked. I tend to buy what James Harden said today in his press conference, or leading up to the press conference, where he always preferred Philadelphia. That was where he wanted to land last year when he was traded. So it's almost like Brooklyn was sort of a detour on his way to where he actually wanted to go.
Well, it's what he said. You don't get to pick all the time where you get traded.
Right, and that's the thing. I think people forget that there was still some controls there that Houston had when they traded him. The other thing is, a lot of people are complaining within the trade that we gave up those 2 first-round picks. Like, that's going to make Brooklyn so much better. Well, do you remember the haul of picks they had to give up to Houston? They're just sort of and one of those
those picks, it's just, first off, they'll be bad picks anyway, because it'll be late first-round picks anyway. And you just don't know what's going to happen between now and then with trades and different situations. The
Sixers could absolutely recoup some of that capital.
Yeah, totally. So I'm not really even worried about the picks at this point. Another funny thing that came up in the James Harden press conference, where he said that the question that led to him talking about Philadelphia was his preferred destination all along, from going from Houston, was dumbass Howard Eskin asked him, can you explain how you've been on 3 teams in 18 months? Well, so that when you frame it that way, it sounds like, oh my God, like if I said I had 3 jobs in 18 months, well, only one of those jobs was a very short period of time. So right. If you said okay, well, he was on Houston for 8 years, then he got traded to a team that he ultimately didn't want to play for, told that team he's not going to sign the player option to stay there. They traded him to try to get something before he walks.
Right.
How is any of that a disloyal teammate who quits on their team and it's just constantly trying to change his scenery? It just doesn't play like that. And you're trying to of course it's like WIP. You're trying to fit the actual events into the narrative that you want to paint. And it's like, oh my God, come off it. And this is the guy who just got blasted the day before by
one of the
Doc
worst
Rivers,
takes I've ever heard,
because he comes to the pregame press conference and then doesn't stay for the game, so he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
And trade Embiid.
Right. Trade Embiid is one of the worst takes I've ever heard. God. Joel Embiid right now is unquestioned the best big man, probably the best player in the NBA.
Sure. He's MVP. Yeah.
And he's
as close as you get to
how old, right? You know what I mean? And it's ridiculous. Even if he has a short career because of his size, he will go down as one of the all times. He's just that dominant. He does things on the court that other people have never done. And that's why,
I don't want to put the horse in front of the carriage in front of the horse.
Cart in front of the horse, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't want to get into Embiid's a Hall of Famer at this point, but he is playing on a sort of an unconscious level. I was at the game on Saturday against the Cavs, who were actually chasing in the standings, and he put up a 40-point triple-double like it was just no problem whatsoever. It was great.
Right.
It was a great atmosphere. And the Sixers are in a kind of a weird situation right now because Harden's not playing, and we're short on pieces right now. So they're getting absolutely decimated by the Celtics right now, who are super hot.
Yeah, because you've got no backup center, and you've got you've lost your shooter, and you've yet to be able to bring in a couple of other pieces from the buyout market, that's going to happen too. I don't think that we've seen that the Sixers team is in its finished product, but Daryl Morey had to make this deal because your window for Joel Embiid playing at this level is small. And if you have the chance to bring in a top 5 player in the NBA, which James Harden certainly is capable of being, who is also a fit for this team. That's the other thing. It's not like they're bringing in another center. James Harden and Joel Embiid are going to be able to play on the court together, and their games complement each other. So you also did not have to give up Thibault or Maxey, which is your future. Those are the 2 guys that you're going to be able to have, that you have control over, that are playing above their draft status, that are very valuable players to your team and other teams. This was the deal that you had to make. And you had Brooklyn over sort of a barrel because Brooklyn knew that they weren't going to be able to keep Harden. And if they were going to try and reconstruct and save face with this big 3 experiment they tried to do last year, they had to bring in a player that they could sell as a marketable third player. And that was Ben Simmons for them. The problem is now you've got a guy like Kyrie Irving, who we know can be unhinged. And you've got a guy like Ben Simmons, who we've experienced sort of his ups and downs. I mean, specifically against Brooklyn in a playoff series, they were posting on telephone polls in Brooklyn. Have you seen Ben Simmons in the middle of that series? You remember that?
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
But they love him
sort of
now.
like,
Now he's part of a big three. He's an all-star. He's great. We mistreated him.
but
The whole thing.
do you think that there was some aspect of that Ben Simmons always thought that the Sixers were his team, and
I don't know.
he because I will tell you he's not going to be. Brooklyn was not going to be his team unless Kevin Durant and Kyrie retire. That's Kevin Durant's team.
I just don't know how you can be like I don't know if that was his mentality. If it was his mentality, I don't know how you can possibly even have that mentality if you're like, I don't shoot, I don't score, I do other things, all these other things, great. And yeah, I just don't know how you could be like, well, I'm the owner of this is my team. And by the way, Steve Nash's comments after acquiring Ben Simmons was I don't have the quote in front of me, but he was basically saying like, okay, he does a lot of things on the basketball court that are great that I'm excited to see, and shooting is not one of those things. Okay, so here's the situation. So now you're going to enable Ben Simmons. You're going to basically say you are not here to shoot. You are here to play defense and pass and rebound. So you're going to create this enabling situation, and then when you want him to do it, he's not going to do it. This is the thing. It's like, look, how many years have we gone into the season watching Ben Simmons Instagram videos of him at practice, like dribbling around his brother and pulling up with a jumper, and it's like, oh my God, Ben Simmons got a jump shot this year, it's totally going to happen, like this is the year, and then it doesn't happen. It's never going to happen. And I can't wait to watch Brooklyn Twitter go like fall in love with this guy over and over and over. Like I'm already seeing it now. Like they're so hyped for Ben Simmons. It's like you have no idea like what you have no idea, which is why I'm getting like really annoyed with the outside Philadelphia basketball universe, like all of a sudden weighing in on the Ben Simmons situation. And it's like, you don't know about my relationship. Like you don't know what I went through in this relationship. You're going to take her side? Like you don't know what she did to me. Like you want to talk about my side of the situation?
Yeah. What about foul shots?
Comment on my relationship.
We're talking about foul shots. We don't have to talk about threes. We can just talk about foul shots.
I feel like I've been psychologically abused in this relationship.
Well, coming off of that relationship with Markelle Fultz, I mean, I guess it was one of those things that we just have a type.
And the whole world clowned on this dude. Like the whole world clowned on him. Do you remember the ESPYs when Falcon was like, help us build schools in third world countries with all the bricks Ben Simmons shoots? Like the whole world clowned on this dude, and Philly stood up for him.
Yeah.
As best we could.
Right. Well, time. I mean, you get to a point where you start to look ridiculous when you start taking his back. I was somebody that defended him for years, but he didn't care that I defended him. He didn't want to do the things that eventually he was going to need to do to help. I mean, ultimately, there were things that he needed to do so that the team would win. That was the thing, is like he needed to improve these things so that the team would win. We weren't asking for anything impossible. We were asking for a passable jump shot. You're an NBA player. We were asking you to be able to shoot better than Shaq in foul shots. These are things that you can improve on. You can practice them. I know we're talking about practice. But
Gene, I'm going to ask you a loaded question now. A very dangerous loaded question. Does Ben Simmons have mental health issues that he's dealing with?
I'm actually going to say yes.
Okay.
I think that he definitely has some sort of mental health issues. Do I think that there wasn't some amount of gamesmanship in here somewhere? There absolutely was. If you listen to him, he was talking about this was never about the players on the Sixers. It was never about the ownership. It was never about the fans. This is all about him being able to get his mind right to be able to play. It was never about money. He didn't care about money. Well, I mean, he cost himself a lot of it. So I think that there's probably some truth to that. But what do you have any recollection of there ever being a situation like this before with any player? I mean, he was deeply under contract. You know, I sort of understand this was sort of the only tool he had in his arsenal was just to stop playing. But to not sort of advocate in a way that he just sort of just disappeared. I don't know. There is certainly something that's disconnected somewhere in there.
So I mean, like, I just want to understand the timeline of this. So the timeline is the Hawks series. Joel said this was the turning point. Doc Rivers said that he doesn't know if you can build a championship team with Ben Simmons as the point guard. Ben Simmons now is like, okay, I demand a trade. I played my last game as a Sixer. I don't want to talk to any players. I'm refusing to talk to anybody. I'm out in California. I'm in England, like whatever. I'm totally shut down mode. I'll take the season off. I don't care. It's not about money. I just never want to play for the Sixers ever again. Then the Sixers start fining him. Then there's a mental health issue that comes up.
And he kept,
this is just the timeline. Like, this is just the timeline.
That's the timeline. And now, I mean, sort of in retrospect, he's also saying around the time at the end of the Hawks series, he's saying that also coincided with things that happened in his personal life. We don't know what those things are or what he's referring to, but he's saying that these things coincided. And is this a matter of he saying, I'm going through this breakdown? And
but weren't there quotes, comments, something? I know he hasn't spoken to the media, but wasn't there reports that came out that it was about the coach? It was about Embiid's comments. It was about his treatment in Philadelphia.
But I mean, we all know how the game is sort of played. Is it possible that these are his handlers, his people, trying to generate the momentum that you need to generate to then get what your client wants? You have to sort of create this untenable situation. Obviously, there was some truth to the fact that it was about Embiid and Doc.
Honestly, I think this is I think this is like a diffusion. I'll read you the Ben Simmons comment. For me, it was about making sure I was mentally right to get out there and play again. So that's something I've been dealing with. It wasn't about the fans or coaches or comments made about anybody. It was a personal thing for me that began earlier than the Hawks playoff series or even that season that I was dealing with. That organization knew that. It was something I continue to deal with. I'm getting there and getting to the right place to get back on the floor. The mental health has nothing to do with just the trade. It was a bunch of things I was dealing with as a person in my personal life that I don't want to go in depth with, but I'm here now and it's a blessing to be with an organization like this. I'm looking forward to get back on the floor and building something great here. So, all right. So look, two things, right? So if this actually is a mental health issue that has nothing to do with the Sixers, that has nothing to do with Doc Rivers, has nothing to do with Embiid, it has nothing to do with the fans, the Nets have a problem on their hands, right?
Right.
I mean, he's not ready to play. He's still dealing with the issue, he says. I mean, if we're taking Ben's comments at face value, the Nets have a problem on their hands, right?
Well, and the only other piece of evidence you can sort of go back to is we heard the case where Charles Barkley went on the air and essentially said that Ben Simmons is soft and, for not playing. And then
Barkley or Shaq, or both Barkley and Shaq.
I think that was. Oh, you're right. It was Shaq. Right. It was Shaq because then Ben texts Shaq because they both went to LSU.
Yeah.
Right. It was Shaq. So Shaq then the next time basically they were on the air came and said, apologized and walked back his comments. So that's sort of the only other evidence that I have that goes back before the trade went through that says that maybe there is something that we don't know about that Shaq is sort of alluding to there because he was hesitant to say more than just that he's going through something. I believe that this is probably a more of a case of there's truth on both extremes. But what's actually going on is probably somewhere in the middle. He has these personal problems, which makes him less likely to want to push through what he needs to do to play at an NBA level. And especially when you're someone like Ben is, where your game is under such scrutiny, so you're always going to have sort of this pressure. It could make you sort of throw your hands up in frustration and be like, you know what? I'm just not going to be an NBA player right now. And this is not the environment where I'm going to ever get better.
I want to, because a lot of the national media today and the basketball Twitter outside of Sixers Twitter was really putting a lot of pressure on Philadelphia fans about how we mistreated Ben Simmons during his time here. I just wanted to go back and read a quote from another player that we supposedly ran out of town here because they weren't performing due to, like, I don't know, a mental block or something like that. And that's Markelle Fultz. And these are comments that Markelle Fultz made in November, just this past November, about Sixers fans. He said, quote, "I didn't feel hate or anything. I felt love even from the fans. I think a lot of people get confused because they hear people in the media talking about how the fans treat me bad, but I never felt like the fans treated me bad. I felt like they always showed me love when I was in a game. They're very supportive. They're very happy. I got a standing ovation when I came back, and I understand that Philly love. They die and breathe their team, so they're going to get on you when you're doing bad. They're going to love you when you're good, and that's kind of how my mom raised me, Like, you're going to get that tough love if you need to do what you need to do, and that's, like, coming from the area of DMV. Like, that's all we breed, so it never bothered me. I think a lot of people got confused with the media talking about, oh, the Philly fans do this, do that, but I always felt love when I was there."
Right. And I think that that's absolutely true.
I mean, pretty fair assessment. Also, really fair assessment of how we treated Ben Simmons. I don't know what to say, man. Like, what do you want us to do for the guy?
Right. That's exactly it. Like, I think it feels like, first of all, we all know that the national media, for some reason, falls all over itself to make Philadelphia fans look like bad fans. It's just like a thing that the national media has done for decades. It's a, partly I think because we wear it with a badge of honor most of the time, but it is frustrating when it's talking about running people out of town, because that's just not nearly as common as people would like to believe that happens in Philadelphia. We don't run people out of town. And it's frustrating to be sort of lumped in with this group of terrible fans. What do they want? Apathy? Do they want us to just sit on our hands? Do they want silence in the face of, clearly something that is detrimental to what is the ultimate goal of why we care about sports? We don't care about sports to, like, finish sixth. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, we all want to ascend to what is the highest point, because when we get there, and if point of fact, look at any of the teams that have won championships in this town, you ascend to basically godlike status around here. Pat Burrell is never going to pay for a beer in the city of Philadelphia. Chase Utley essentially could go and run for mayor and would probably be elected in a landslide. These people become popular doesn't even cover what Jason Kelce is going to be when he finally retires, what he is now, even still playing. Once you achieve these certain things, when Doug Peterson comes back, coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, he is going to be given a standing ovation.
Oh, 100%. Totally. 100%.
So, like,
even from the people who wanted him to move on.
Right.
It was fine. It was time. Whatever. Whether you, I don't know. How that all went down is always still going to be a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
But
we don't
wish
Doug any ill will. We appreciate what he did for this city and for this organization. And all of us are sort of always going to carry a soft spot for him and hope that his teams sort of, at least he has some sort of personal success.
But it's funny though, because you also don't have to win a title.
No, that's true. Brian Dawkins didn't win a title.
Yeah. I mean, John Kruk.
Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
Eric you don't have to win a title.
Ron Hextall.
Right. I mean, the list goes on. We
Ron Hextall's probably different. A bad analogy now.
Yeah.
Rod Brindamore would be a good one.
We don't run people out of town the way that people say that we do. A lot of these cases are people that don't want to be here. People say we ran Scott Rowland out of town. We didn't run Scott Rowland out of town. He didn't want to be here. We certainly didn't run J.D. Drew out of town.
I think the distinction is tough fan versus bad fan. And it's like, yes, it's a tough fan base. It's tough. Like we don't just let it go. It is tough in that sense. It's tough love. It is tough. But
there's a double-edged sword to a long memory.
Yeah, I mean, it's the highs are high, the lows are low. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's passion. It's tough. It's not bad. Anyway, what else about this? Did you watch the press conference?
The Harden press conference or the Ben Simmons press conference?
The Harden press conference.
I watched the Ben Simmons press conference, but I did not see the Harden
one. Daryl Morey called Matisse Thybulle Tybal 20 times in the press. You think it's weird he doesn't know how to pronounce his own player's name?
I've only ever heard anyone else call him Thybulle, and I think that's what Jason Blevins calls him. And I will default to what Jason calls everybody.
No, I've looked into this. It is most definitely 100% Thybulle.
Right.
It is not Tybal, as Daryl Morey was saying today. I thought that was odd.
I'm sure that Matisse is just like, as long as he says untouchable, I'm good. He can call me whatever he wants.
What do you think of? Did you hear about the situation with Mina Kimes today?
So is that the Olympic situation with the?
No.
Who is
Mina Kimes is a really an NFL analyst on ESPN.
Oh, okay. So not a figure skater from Russia.
So she destroyed Ben Simmons after the Hawks series. Essentially saying this man deserves all of the criticism that's coming his way. Had a lot of really anti-Ben Simmons related tweets on her verified Twitter account, and then came out today very harsh against those that had criticized Ben Simmons, particularly Sixers fans, and then proceeded to go back and delete her tweets, her critical tweets about him.
Talk about a heel turn. Damn.
From a year ago. Honestly, I think I don't have the luxury of having a verified account that just gets thousands of likes every time I just say I like coffee, and it gets 3,000 likes. But a word of advice for those that do have verified accounts: don't delete your tweets because the receipts are there. Someone screen capped it already. It's there forever. Just
and you're gonna look way worse when you try to
just
hide
say
it.
I moved on. Or better yet, if you're not in the relationship, don't comment on the relationship because you don't know what went down.
Right. Well, it's one of those things where, specifically in this case, you should comment something to the effect of, "I've changed my position." That that's what you would have had to done if you worked in newspaper. You would have had to write a column that says, "I've changed my mind." You can't go back and erase what you've already published.
Yeah, you could say, "Hey, back last spring, I didn't have all the information. With the information that I have now, my position on this has evolved. I think we should give Ben Simmons a break."
And you know what? Then none of us would be talking about this. So instead,
it'd be like, "Wow, what an evolved human being that is. What species of person is this?" Because I have never heard anyone.
Where did they come from? It's certainly not usually what you see on Twitter.
Yeah. So you wanted to talk a little Carson Wentz. What do you got for us, Gene?
So, and I mean,
Talking about
nothing
players
has
we've run out
yet.
of town.
Another person we did not run out of town.
Another adverse player.
It's just like, yeah, I mean, and talk about somebody who literally couldn't get out of like a shadow, like, you know, the irreparable damage of the Eagles winning a Super Bowl. It seemed like he seemed to be the only one in Philadelphia that was not super happy about the fact that we won a Super Bowl. He probably has that ring like buried out in the backyard in Jersey. So we all saw sort of, I mean, the epic collapse. I mean, we were all keeping tabs on his snap count all year because it had bearing on the Eagles draft position. And that was something that we were invested in, quite literally. It was amazing to sort of watch the Eagles' fortunes sort of rise near the end of the season and Carson Wentz's fortunes sort of tumble at the end of the season. And from what I'm gathering, if you sort of take notes on the general manager's press conference at the end of the season and the head coach's press conference at the end of the season, it seems to me that the ownership in Indianapolis is sort of coming down and saying, we aren't going to pay that roster bonus in March. So you need to find a trade or we're going to cut him. We're not going to pay that guy his $15 million in March that he's owed for that roster bonus. So, I mean, that's the thing is now you've got to find a trade partner that wants to take that contract, because he was paid like Dak money or just under Dak money. It's a massive contract.
Oh, God, where would be?
But they don't want to pay that.
Where would be a good landing spot for him?
Pittsburgh. That's what I think.
God, Pittsburgh. But do they even want? Like, would they do that?
I think that would be a good spot for his skill set.
If I were Pittsburgh, I'd rather roll with Jimmy G.
Yeah.
I mean,
New Orleans, I think, needs a quarterback. Houston needs a quarterback. It's like 8 teams that need quarterbacks.
That's crazy.
So, here we are, not even a year from that trade, and Carson Wentz is already back sort of in circulation. So, I mean, by Howard Eskin logic, is he going to be like, well, you're going to be on 3 teams in 18 months?
Yeah, but Carson Wentz isn't a future Hall of Fame or a perennial All-Star MVP candidate. Wow, boy, how the
we thought he might be.
What the hell happened to Carson Wentz?
I mean, that would be it would be a great 30 for 30. What the hell happened to Carson Wentz?
I honestly think it's like a Greek tragedy. I mean, the hubris of the guy was really his own downfall, and I think that he fell victim to a lot of jealousy, like some deep-seated need to prove himself after the Nick Foles situation. I mean, all the reports of like being a bad teammate and everything. It really feels to me like he had all this talent.
In Indianapolis, that didn't go away.
Yeah, we saw it in 2017. We saw the talent. We saw the ability. We saw what was the year that he just like really just muscled them into the play. Like 2 years ago, where he just, where we lost to the Seahawks, where he just sort of muscled them into the postseason with some really incredible late season play. So the talent was always there. It was just the head was just not. I don't know. It just wasn't.
Well, I mean,
screwed on just right or something.
Like once that collapse started, you just could see it on the field. Because I don't think that Jalen Hurts is such a dynamic talent. He's a good quarterback, but I think that the thing that's been most effective about the switch from Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts is simply the fact that Jalen Hurts is a much better leader. Like his leadership qualities, his ability to rally the the troops, so to speak. The ability to get his guys behind him is exponentially better than Carson Wentz. Those guys want to play to make Jalen Hurts better. They want to help Jalen Hurts succeed. They want to help him keep his job. They want him to be the quarterback of the team. I think if you went into that locker room in 2019 and took a survey of players anonymously, I guarantee you that the majority of those offensive players did not want Carson Wentz to be the quarterback of that team. No way. And that's why Nick Foles had to get traded, because they had a lot more money invested in Carson Wentz. It's possible that they could have kept Nick Foles another year with sort of how that team was constructed. Maybe they make another run at it. He just happened to be that perfect fit between Doug Peterson, quarterback and coach sort of relationship that you just don't see other places.
I mean, at the end of the day, amazing, like incredible that we got a first round pick out of this deal for a player that just totally like fell apart, a huge fall from grace. And look what's happened now. And I mean, if you're a Colts fan, I mean, just how do you reconcile this? This is gross malpractice of management to make that trade and allow that first round pick to slip.
We trust you that you're going to go out and do the thing that we believe is going to make us better. And from the outside looking in, you thought, great, we fleeced these guys. Now we have a franchise quarterback. And Frank Reich should have known better. He was there. He knew him. And now look at what they've been left with. It's one of those things where you're sort of looking at, and the Super Bowl is a good example of this. You're looking at, in the Super Bowl this year, you're looking at two teams that sort of were built two different ways. You had Cincinnati, who to some degree over 30 years had to slowly build through the draft. And finally they connect on a guy like Joe Burrow. And, maybe they're a little bit ahead of schedule, but he's just that good of a player that he sort of was able to, through sort of just fluky, insane plays, beating these juggernauts of the AFC on their home field in overtime. Like some legendary stuff that people are going to talk about for decades. And then you have the Rams, who bought their team, essentially. And when it looked like they were going to stumble, they went and spent a little more money. They went and got Odell Beckham and added him to the mix to sort of put them over the top. And you sort of saw that, both of these dynamics of how you build an NFL team clashing in the Super Bowl. If you're Howie Roseman, what you're really sort of sitting on the precipice of, is now the time where the Eagles are going to try to build from the draft, or is this where you take those 3 first-round picks and that's sort of like your bank, and do you go out and try and get a player or two that puts you over the top? Maybe more importantly, do you think the Eagles are a player or two over the top? And is that player a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think, like, if the Eagles went and got Russell Wilson, they win the Super Bowl next year?
I don't know that they're that close. I don't know that they're close enough to do. I mean, like, I don't know that they're that close.
So your preference, I guess, would be, and I sort of agree,
but I don't let. So I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is going to be available. I'm not really in love with Russell Wilson. So I guess I am in camp, use the draft picks to strengthen the team. And hopefully you can use a little free agency also to sauce it up a little bit. And then you just don't know. I mean, like your fortunes change in the NFL so fast that the Eagles could be a contender next year. You just don't know. I mean, you didn't know that the Bengals were going to be a contender this year. You just don't know. So maybe Jalen Hurts takes a huge step forward in this offseason and puts in tons of time and effort and improves his game so much that I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. I don't want to. I'm glad I'm not making those decisions, but we'll see what Howie does.
Right, and I think that this is sort of going to be the real test of whether Howie Roseman is going to be remembered as the great architect of Eagles football for his tenure, or if really it was, it could have been better if Howie hadn't have sort of fumbled the ball off.
Yeah. All right. Got anything else on the slate tonight, Gene? You want to talk about?
One of the things that we could talk about, and our favorite subject where nothing is happening, the sport of baseball. Bryce Harper, I think today or yesterday, sort of let it be known that he is packed and ready to go to spring training whenever that happens.
We saw that.
I am frustrated, to say the least. I have not looked forward to a Phillies season as much as I've looked forward to this upcoming season in a long time. I really can't wait to sort of see them try and turn the corner. I feel like they're just a very intriguing team right now to me. Making us wait is sort of frustrating. The only real baseball news I think that we've gotten that is worth discussing is I think we can confirm that the universal DH starts next year. We've seen our pitcher, we've seen the pitcher bat for the last time in Major League
When
Baseball.
You say next year, you mean this coming season, right?
Whenever it happens.
Yeah, I guess.
We have seen the pitcher bat for the last time.
Not necessarily, but yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as being in the lineup, pitchers will bat, but would be in.
If your pitcher bats, if the pitcher bats, you lose your DH slot, right? Isn't that how the rule works?
I think so.
So if whoever is playing the pitcher position when their spot in the order comes up, if they bat, you then lose the DH spot, right?
Right. Is that the Shohei Ohtani rule?
I mean, you're certainly still going to see situations where Vince Velasquez comes off the bench to swing the lumber for another team,
right? Because you can only carry so many.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting. You want to talk about Kamila Valieva?
So that is the Russian figure skater.
Yes, that is the Russian figure skater who.
Yes, I did not know her name, but I do have opinions on her.
Well, what are your opinions? That's what we're here for, Gene. You got opinions? You got hot takes?
So this is one of the most absurd
hot
decisions.
Takes on a 15-year-old ice skater?
I don't have hot takes necessarily on her, other than the fact that there's no reason why she should even be.
Are they hot skates?
Yeah, they're hot skates, but I don't know how it got to this point. Why anything called the Russian Federation is even allowed to compete. That whole thing is a sham of a joke of a sham. If you've banned Russia, it doesn't mean if the United States gets banned, I shouldn't be seeing the Federation of Missouri, competing in the Olympics.
I love how the IOC makes FIFA look like such a well organized stand-up organization.
And this is the worst case of we all had teachers who if something would go wrong, rather than try and discipline the person that actually committed said act of whatever, they would make everybody stay in for recess or give everybody detention. And this is the worst case of that on the biggest sports scale, because now they're saying in one of the premier events in the Winter Olympics that draws. This has been one of the lamest Olympics I've ever seen, and not in terms of the competition, but in terms of interest with anyone that I've come in contact with, the quality of the broadcast. It's just so flavorless. It's just got no juice, as they say. And to now take one of your premier events and basically say, we're going to let her compete, and If she medals, nobody gets a medal. That's absurd. It's totally obnoxious.
No one gets the ceremony.
I've heard that. I thought I understood it as like, if she medals, no one gets the medal until after her case.
Until the investigation is complete.
Right.
In like the premier
fucking
event of the Winter Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like everyone's mom is glued to NBC to watch the figure skating in the Winter Olympics. Right. I mean, that's just.
And let's say this girl gets the bronze medal. Well, that means that nobody gets a medal.
And I mean, I think right now she's leading.
Yeah, I think she's going to win the gold. But that's because she was on
something.
Because she's on the juice or whatever. Like, she was.
The juice is loose. Yeah, I mean, like, to me, it just seems pretty cut and dried. Like, look, I mean, and the Olympics have always been this very like, nope, that's the rule. Nope, positive test. Nope, sorry. No, what was her name? Sharia.
From the Summer Olympics.
Yeah. It's like, nope, sorry, you smoked a doob. You can't race. I don't care if it makes you slower. It's still unfair because it's an illegal site. Like, nope, those are the rules. So
she must be sitting wherever she is in this country, just raging into the night.
Yeah, I'm sure she. But like, I don't understand what. So first off, the IOC kisses the ass of these communist dictatorships all over the globe and bend over backwards to try to give them Olympic Games, and now it's this. I don't know.
But it's so stupid. Like, you're telling me that was the best solution, not like we won't give her a medal. Like, why can't if it's my sister or my mother or my daughter that's won an Olympic medal in this sport and she's got the silver medal, why can't, because all three of them get to hear their anthems, why can't the position that's in dispute be left empty? Why are you?
I know, like, why can't you just take the medal, put it in a safe somewhere, put it next to the what is it, the 1980 USA basketball team silver medals, whatever. Just put it in that vault wherever that is, and let it sit there until you figure it out, and let everyone else just enjoy their life.
That is one of my favorite Olympic sort of stories. Did
I get the right year? It was 1980.
It's either like 80 or
84,
76.
84, 76, 80, something like that.
Yeah, that there's just a vault in Switzerland that has all of their medals, and they've all agreed. None of them have taken them.
I was probably like one dude wasn't like, just give me mine.
Well, that's the thing, is like, that would be so insanely valuable because it's famous. It is famously locked up. You know what I mean?
Listen,
nobody has one.
It's like, listen, it would be I'm so 70 tempting. Years old. Like, I'll just take the medal.
Well, can you imagine being like one of those guys' kids? It's like, Dad, just like in the will, like when you're dead, just like leave one to me. But nobody, they won't take them. Yeah. They've all agreed that like they might as well just melt them down as far as those guys on that team are concerned. They're never going to be released. They're just going to sit in the vault until somebody robs the vault.
There is a 30 for 30 for that one, isn't there?
Yeah.
If not, there should be.
Yeah, no, and it's the, there's what, like 20 of them, however many people were on that team. It's not just like one. It like everybody agreed. The whole thing, like they had a meet. How do you get that many people to agree on one thing?
On anything? I know.
It's amazing.
I know
that there's.
I bet you that. Well, I'll tell you what.
Stewie, why the fuck do you go to Switzerland every year and demand your goddamn medal?
They can all agree not to take that medal, but I bet you they don't all wear masks. I bet you they're not all vaccinated. But they all agreed that like we all got a hair up our ass about this, and we're not going to take those damn medals.
Yeah, but fuck that medal.
That's good times right there. I love that. That's that's fun. All right, you want to wrap it?
Yeah, I think that's all I got.
So, but by the way, like Villanova is, if you're a college basketball fan at all, Villanova is playing Providence right now, basically for pole position in the Big East. And there is 3 minutes left, and Nova's up by 5. So let's all go watch the end of that game, and we'll be back.
Was that on CBS tonight?
It's on CBS Sports Network. If you have
I have no idea.
Beefed up sports package, you can check it out.
Something, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. But listen, by then we'll get some Harden games under our belt. We'll be rocking and rolling. Hopefully we get a Claude Giroux trade. We'll see who the next captain of the Philadelphia Flyers is going to be. Maybe we get some movement on baseball. Like I was all set to wear my Philly spring training gear tonight in honor of what would have been spring training, but I had to throw the Nova gear on.
You made the right choice.
Game. So yeah, we'll be back next Tuesday. So until then, if you haven't done so already, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Also check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search Podadelphia. If you have any more time in your podcast listening day, be sure to check out the Whip Around for all the week's weird news. Also check out the Painted Lines on Facebook and YouTube for your wall-to-wall Philly sports coverage. And until we meet again, everyone, have a great day at work, everybody. We are out of here.